A long time ago, there was an extremely tall man who was so big and strong that we would call him a giant today. His name was Goliath, and he was a Philistine, which means he lived in an area called Philistia, which is now part of the country of Israel. But back then, it was a collection of small kingdoms that were enemies of Israel. One day, Goliath decided to have some fun by picking a fight with the army of Israel. He stood between the armies of Israel and Philistia and yelled really loud, "Hey, Israel, why don't you send someone to fight me? If anyone can defeat me, I will become his servant. But if I beat him, he will be my servant." And he did this every day for 40 days. And each time he did, the men of Israel became more and more afraid. The king of Israel at the time was named Saul, and Saul was afraid too. So he said to his men, "Look at this big, strong guy. Who among you is willing to fight him?" But no one stepped forward. No one wanted to fight Goliath because he was so big and so strong. But one day, there was a young boy who heard about the giant. The young boy's name was David, and David wasn't afraid like all the other men. In fact, he was angry. Why? Because before this giant started picking fights with the army of Israel, he used to be a shepherd boy who lived in the hills near Jerusalem. And when he tended his sheep, he loved to sing and dance while he watched over his animals. But lately, David hadn't been able to do that. You see, when Goliath came to the valley and taunted the army of Israel, King Saul gathered up his best warriors and stationed them on a mountain nearby. That meant that the valley where David liked to watch over his sheep was now full of soldiers. So David couldn't take his sheep into the valley anymore. And even worse, all the soldiers were so scared they couldn't even drive their cows or goats out to eat the grass. So all the plants in the valley grew really tall because there were no animals to eat them. Well, one day, David's older brother named Eliab was in the army, and he was going to be in the fight against the Philistines. So David grabbed some food and went to meet his brother and give it to him. As he walked into the camp, he heard Goliath yelling really loudly and making fun of the people of Israel. David thought to himself, "Who does this big luck think he is? Does he really think he's so great? He doesn't look so tough to me." Then David remembered what Goliath had been doing for the past 40 days. All those times the people of Israel had been afraid and worried. It made David sad, and it made him even angrier at Goliath. So David went into the middle of the camp and yelled really loud to everyone, "Hey, who is this uncircumcised Philistine who is insulting the armies of the living God? He's just a skinny guy. Don't worry, I'll go fight him and kill him." At first, the soldiers didn't hear what David said. They were so afraid of Goliath. They thought they heard David say, "I'm gonna go fight the giant," and they all started laughing. But David got really upset and marched right up to the king. He told King Saul, "Why are these men laughing? This guy has been insulting the God of Israel for 40 days. If he keeps laughing, I'm gonna go fight him." King Saul said to David, "No, you can't fight him. You're too young and too skinny. There's no way you can win against that guy." But David replied, "I've fought bigger and stronger opponents than him. I've killed lions and bears. When they come to steal my sheep, I've beaten them and rescued my flock. I know that God will help me beat this Philistine." King Saul looked at David and saw how confident he was. So Saul asked, "Well, how do you plan on beating this guy? You don't have any weapons or armor." And David said, "I'll just use my sling, which I always carry to protect myself from wild animals. And I'll use 5 smooth stones I picked up along the way. I'll toss one of those stones at this Philistine, and that'll be the end of his boasting." When King Saul heard that David had killed lions and bears, he believed that God was with David. So the king gave David his armor, and he put a helmet on David's head and fastened a sword at his side. But David wasn't happy with the armor. He said to King Saul, "I'm not comfortable with this heavy armor. I can't move around in it, and I've never worn anything like this before. I don't want to wear it." So David took of Saul's armor and kept his sword, but he didn't use it. Instead, he kept 5 stones in his bag, and he kept his sling, which was like a little ball and chain he could throw really far. Then David went out to meet Goliath. As soon as Goliath saw David, he started laughing. He thought it was really funny that the little boy was coming to fight him. Goliath said, "Hey, are you here to fight me? Why don't you come a little closer so I can kill you and eat your meat?" David asked Goliath, "Why are you insulting the armies of the living God? You're the one who is going to die, and the God of Israel will win the victory, not you." Then David turned away from Goliath and reached for a stone in his bag. Goliath thought David was reaching for a club or something, so he charged toward David to get him. But as Goliath was charging, David swung his sling and tossed a stone at Goliath. The stone hit Goliath right above his eye, and he fell down on top of the pile of rocks. David ran over to the giant and pulled his sword out of its sheath. Then David cut off the giant's head, and the Philistines started running away. As soon as the Philistines started running, the men of Israel began chasing them. They chased them all the way to their city. The people of Israel won that day, and David became very famous. All the women sang songs about him as he walked through the streets of Jerusalem. And King Saul gave David the daughter of his old age, Princess Michal, to be his wife. And David continued to serve God and be a good king over Israel for many years after that. So remember, if someone ever tells you that you can't do something, don't believe them. And remember, it's not the size that matters, but the heart. Oh, and also, if you ever have a giant problem, just grab a sling and 5 stones, and you'll be good to go. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a like. If you know someone who needs to hear this story, please share it with them. Subscribe for more stories just like this one. And until next time, remember to stay awesome.